I'm Aaron. I'm an engineer, and I've got an MBA. And when you put those two things together, it's a deadly combination, but not in the way that you think. Let me explain. As a sweeping generalization, I'm going to say that engineers believe that they're better than everybody. I remember the first day in engineering school, we had the guides and some of the professors telling us that engineers own the world. And you can't tell an 18-year-old that they own the world. It's going to go to their head. And this God complex, we'll call it, gets nurtured through 4 or 5 years worth of school. And at the end of it all, we get a ring to signify that we're better than everybody. That's crazy. You take this ego and you toss an MBA into it, and an MBA really is just a degree that says, I have the most minute understanding of what a cash flow statement that makes me better than you. You put an engineering degree and an MBA together, and it's gonna go straight to some guy's head. Now, people take an MBA for various reasons, and for the most part, it's sold to us as kind of a practical degree to have. Now, I've been out of school for about 6 months now, and I'm looking back on all the stuff that I've done, and I realize I've got a really expensive history degree. Like a really, really expensive history degree. Can you have a practical history degree? I don't know. But from what I understand about business now and where it's going and what's been done, yeah, it's a really expensive history degree. Fuck. Now, the MBA taught me basic business concepts, and it showed me how businesses used to work. Used to work. Not will work, used to work. And that's probably my biggest roadblock in my head, is that they're assuming that what worked back then will work in the future. And it's a reasonable assumption, but we don't actually know what's in the future. And it's this de facto standard that I just couldn't get my head around. What worked back then is definitely going to work in the future. We all know that. That's deadly. That's what I'm talking about, deadly. Is that if I do all that, I am blinding myself from what the future actually holds. I'm blinding myself of a new way of doing business. I'm blinding myself of a better way of doing business. I'm going to expand on this a little more. This idea of the de facto standard. And I think the heart of the problem is this. MBAs are meant for people who want to become better leaders and better managers. And that's a very noble thing to do. But how do MBAs adjust to a world that is changing so quickly that the policies that are being printed out of the company printers are being outdated the moment that they land on an employee's desk? How are we being taught to be critical thinkers? How are we solving the business problems? We're just told it used to work this way. This is how it was done. How about in the future? What happens over here? We don't know. What? This is a problem for most educational institutions, is really how do you teach people to critically think? How to solve problems, to think for themselves, to think slightly outside the box, and think instead of boxes, think in circles and pentagons and trapezoids and stuff. Now, it sounds like I'm really harping on the MBA, and I'll be honest with you, I had a great time with my MBA, and I met a lot of people. I'm a class 2012. The MBA has broadened my horizon, and I do see the world differently. Probably too methodically, more like a business terminator. I've started to get the feeling that how businesses run and how businesses work together, it's going to be really different in the future. And I'm not talking like 25 years from now. Who knows what's going to happen in 25 years? I'm talking about when I go to work tomorrow kind of future. Now you must be thinking, Aaron, who hurt you so much? And have you taken all your medication? And it's none of that. I'll tell you what happened. I was introduced to the social era. And this concept, the social era, was introduced to me in a book called 11 Rules to Create Value in the Social Era by Nilofer Merchant. Mad props go to her for writing it. It's a pretty short read, and if you want to know more about it, it's in the description below. But back to the social era. I can tell you there's thermonuclear explosions going on in my head. You've got the forces of traditional strategy on one hand, and you got the rebellious forces, the social era on the other, and they're just going at it in my head. It's getting so bad that I think I'm getting ulcers from thinking so hard about it. Oh, now my head hurts. Now you must be wondering, what is the social era that you're speaking of, Aaron? And I'm going to let you discover that by reading the book, but I'll try to sum it up. The social era is about focusing on what makes us human to create value. Whoa, no, that doesn't make any sense. That just sounds so, emotional. relationships, communities, uniqueness as individuals, co-creation, social value. Those things sound like really awful, like kumbaya, I need to go find my guitar and a campfire and make myself feel better, kind of awful from a traditional business standpoint anyways. But really, what sounds better? Being part of a community, developing relationships, and creating value for the social good, or working in a vertically integrated company who is hell-bent on cost-cutting, maximizing margin, outsourcing to cheap labor centers, and creating value for shareholders that don't even care that, I have a dog. You pick. The biggest surprise to me was the difference between traditional strategy and the social era. We're not talking about an incremental step. We're talking about a full 180. We're not talking about adding ed to pest and turning it into pest ed. We're not talking about adding one more force to Porter's 5 forces and turning it to Porter's 6 forces. We're talking about taking those two things and replacing them with a picture that has a bunch of stickmen on it, holding hands, and they're all making money. Mind blown. And to add to the mind-blowingness of this social era, the first chapter of the book is entitled Traditional Strategy is Dead. How awesome is that? Mind blown times 2. Now, if you're thinking everything I just described could be accomplished using traditional business practices, yeah, certain aspects could be used, but listen to this. In the social era, Porter's value chain doesn't work. I'm going to let that sink in. Porter's value chain doesn't work. Mind blown.
Advanced Spatial Design Inc. Information seen differently.
So this is the first of 3 webisodes that I'm going to be doing on the social era. The next one will be out in a couple of weeks. So in the meantime, click subscribe if you're interested. I think that button is, we'll put it here. And we've got some older videos, not older videos, but videos of other stuff that we are doing. We've got our social experiment called the Bad Boss Diaries. We do some pretty crazy things there. And so, yeah, check back in a couple weeks. See you later. Actually, no, that's not right. I won't see you. You'll see me in a couple of weeks. Anyways, see ya. If you're still watching, you should definitely push subscribe. Seriously, just